Approximately how many bottles of baby oil would be used in a typical freak-off?
A lot. I would say definitely somewhere close to 10.
And talking about her contemplation of suicide, really just very powerful.
Why did you continue to engage in freak-offs with Sean?
He would ask me. He would bring it up at random times. And I think, to a point, I just didn't feel like I had much of a choice. I didn't really know what no would be or what no could turn into.
Cassie Ventura returns to the stand for day number 2 of cross-examination in Diddy's federal sex trafficking trial. So as the defense questions the prosecution's star witness, we're asking, did Cassie willingly partake in the freak-offs? Plus, the Murdaugh family murders case is trending again as Clerk of Court Becky Hill is arrested on perjury charges. So what could this mean for disgraced attorney Alec Murdaugh? Plus, Brian Kohberger's defense team doubling down on an alternate suspect theory. We're talking about how this will affect his upcoming trial. At the same time, we're remembering the victims, those 4 beautiful Idaho students. And the Commonwealth's case against Karen Reed appears to be entering its final stages. So what's left for the special prosecutor Hank Brennan to prove? It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Friday morning to you and welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Julie Grant. TGIF, right? We made it and we've got a tremendous show planned. So let's get started. Grab that cup of coffee. It's time for my opening statement. How often is it? How often is it that people consuming true crime who talk about it online think about whether they're re-traumatizing the victims? It's an important question in this day and age when the court of public opinion never goes into recess. And real crime victims can be further traumatized by what certain people directed them online. On Thursday, the judge in the Idaho student murders case said that the 2 surviving housemates who are victims of having their home burglarized will have 2 reserved seats in the courtroom, but that they probably won't be sitting in there because of the way that the social media world has treated them. That made me mad. It is bad enough that these young ladies live through the trauma of having their friends murdered in their home, and bad enough that they'll need to be witnesses in the upcoming trial of Brian Kohberger. But they've also had verbal, mental, and emotional abuse directed toward them from total strangers who are not victims on this case. That is appalling, and it's wrong. How I wish that we could make those online bullies walk a day in those victims' shoes. If it were them on the receiving end and they had to suffer through more trauma, I bet they wouldn't hold up so well. Here's the thought. Imagine what kind of change we would see in the world if instead of trying to tear apart crime victims, the bullies would support them instead. What a beautiful thing that would be. I try every day of my life to be an encourager because our world needs more of them. We've got way too many critics. And we have countless, and I mean countless, crime victims who could use our love and support. That's my opening statement. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
Madam Foreperson, what say you as to indictment number 2020 CR 0138, charging the defendant Ingolf Turk with murder? Is he guilty of any offense charged?
He is.
Guilty of what?
He's guilty of voluntary manslaughter.
In Massachusetts at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, we've got the sentencing for prominent urologist Dr. Ingolf Turk. That is set to begin this afternoon. He was, you may recall, convicted of strangling his wife to death and leaving her body in a pond near their home. And he was found guilty of manslaughter charges. So again, 2 p.m. Eastern is the time for that. Also happening in Massachusetts, matter of fact, in the same courthouse, the prosecution's case will continue in defendant Karen Reed's retrial. Court's going to resume at 9 a.m. Eastern. We'll go there together live. And in New York, we've got Diddy's sex trafficking trial resuming at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time with more testimony from Diddy's ex, Cassie Ventura. And that is, of course, our top story for you this Friday, as focus of the crime world remains on Diddy's federal sex trafficking trial. Diddy's former artist and his 10-year-long partner, Cassie, is set to retake the stand in just about 2 hours from now for more cross-examination from Diddy's attorney. Diddy's defense team is trying to paint Ventura as an eager participant in the freak-offs instead of an unwilling victim. We'll get to more on that in just a moment, but first, take a listen to more of what Cassie said on direct examination about those freak-offs. And we're bringing you this testimony through AI-generated voices, and we're coupling them with the actual court transcripts.
Ms. Ventura, yesterday you mentioned blackmail materials. What were you referring to when you said blackmail materials?
Blackmail materials would be actual sex videos, freak-off videos, even just other embarrassing videos. Me drunk, anything that would make me look not great.
When, if ever, would Sean mention the freak-off videos to you?
He would mention them when he was upset about something. It was just a pretty common thing. One time I dated someone else. That is what it was all about. I'm going to put out 2 embarrassing videos of you. He just wanted to hurt me.
All right, for more on Thursday's action, let's go now to New York City. Court TV legal correspondent Kelly Craft outside the courthouse with more for us.
Good morning to you, Julie. The cross-examination of the prosecution's star witness, Cassie Ventura, is expected to wrap up today. At one point during Thursday's cross-examination, Cassie Ventura was standing there in the witness box awaiting the cross-examination to resume, and she was holding what appeared to be prayer beads. Several graphic communications Cassie sent to Sean Combs were shown to the jury Thursday, including a message she sent to Sean in which she said she wanted a freak-off so bad, but she didn't want to get messed up. Here's Cassie's attorney after court Thursday.
I'm not going to opine on what the jury is thinking, but I think that Cassie's doing a great job on cross-examination, very long cross-examination. And so she can be done by the end of the week and put this entire chapter of her life behind.
Cassie's husband, Alex Fine, making his way into court Thursday, showing his support as her cross-examination was set to begin. While on cross, one of the communications Cassie sent to Sean read, "I love our freak-offs when we both want it." She then explained to jurors, though, that loving freak-offs were just words at that point. Also addressed today, Cassie's relationship with Kid Cudi and how Sean found out about it while Cassie was engaging in a freak-off. The prosecution did tell the judge that they have 2 witnesses ready just in case Cassie's cross-examination and then redirect wraps up today. That's the latest from here in New York City. We'll send it back to you.
All right, our thanks to Kelly Craft for that early update. So let's talk about what the defense is trying to do today, trying to chip away at Cassie being seen as a victim. And what do we think about the case overall? I have 2 outstanding guests I can't wait to bring in. Let's welcome them now. Former United States Attorney William Ehlenfeld is with us, and former State Attorney Dave Ehrenberg is with us too. Good morning to you, gentlemen. Oh boy, where do we begin? We got a lot to tackle. Let's start with the government's case, because of course the court of public opinion is always giving criticism. William Ehlenfeld, who better than you to ask about whether this is a good, valid case that the government is bringing against Sean Combs?
Good morning, Julie. Absolutely. It is a righteous case that they're bringing, and I like how they have set up their witnesses. I think it was important for the government to get Cassie on the stand this week. Obviously, she's very pregnant, and they didn't want to take a chance that something could happen with that pregnancy. She might have the baby and not be available to testify. So it's good to have her early on. And the focus really has been on count 2. That's the sex trafficking count in this 3-count indictment. I know there's a racketeering count, that's count 1, but the main reason for Cassie testifying is to provide evidence in support of count 2. The government has done that. They've checked all the boxes on the elements. They did a really good job on direct testimony. Of course, the defense is taking their own approach on cross, and I'm sure we'll get to that. But so far, this is absolutely a righteous case. The government's doing a good job, and there's much more to come in this case, but I think they're going to be very happy once they get Cassie off the stand and they're able to put that behind them.
William, excellent insight. Thank you for that. You touched on this, that we've got the cross, where the defense is really trying to point to some of these instances where Cassie may have seemed eager to participate. Dave Ehrenberg, I want to ask you about the defense approach, please. We have something we want to put up on our screen, and this is some of her words. We know that the defense is kind of throwing her words back against her, saying things like, "I love our freak-offs when we both want it," using the initials FOs for the freak-off, saying things like, "Wish we could have freak-offed before you left," saying things like, "I would say loving freak-offs were just words." At that point, though, she's responding back saying, "Just my words," essentially that she didn't mean it. Dave, she said she felt like she didn't have a choice. Talk to us, please, about the defense approach on this, how they're going after her on her words, knowing that she's got a pretty valid response as well.
Yeah, good to be with you, Julie. And I agree with William. This is a righteous cause, and I think it's a good case. But I do think the defense scored some points yesterday. And I think they're trying to show consent because that's the only defense they have. Because when it comes to adults being human trafficked, you have to show force, fraud, or coercion. If you can show consent, well, that's the ball game. And they're saying, well, at least for some of these freak-offs, she consented. Now, that could put some doubt in the jurors' minds and say, well, we don't know anyone who engages in this conduct. We come from our own world, and here's this person doing this weird stuff. And so she could lose her moral legitimacy in the eyes of the jury, especially after she came across so sympathetically under direct. I mean, she's 8 months pregnant. She spoke very well, according to all reports. So they're trying to chip away and put her on trial and at least show some doubt in the jurors' minds that she willingly participated in it. But, in the real world, Julie, just like life, things are complicated. The relationships are complicated. And you can perhaps consent to a freak-off early in a relationship and then later say, no more. And that would still be a sexual assault.
Oh, Dave, that's such a great point. Thank you so much for that. William, let me go back to you, please. I have some more of these messages the defense is honing in on. I want to put them up on the screen now. One of the text messages the defense really focused in on was from 2010. Cassie Ventura writes in the message, quote, "I'm really hurt by the way you deal with me. I don't need your money. I need some attention. I'm thankful, but I can pay for these things myself." Thursday, she said this on the stand, quote, "I mean, at this point in 2010, because I had fallen in love with him and cared about him very much." William, for anybody who's never been in a domestic violence relationship, it can seem hard to reconcile those things. When you were a state-level prosecutor, I know that you did a lot of DV cases. How would you explain to the jury that these things can be reconciled?
Well, as Dave just said, it is a complicated relationship, and I think the jury's getting the full picture of that. And so it's up to the prosecutor to explain that someone can be forced to do something in one instance, and then perhaps on another instance do so willingly. So this was a loving relationship at points. This was a consensual relationship at points, but at other points it was not. And the government offered evidence of that. They offered evidence that she was forced to do things against her will, that he coerced her. He basically leveraged these videos that he took in order to force her to do things. And the other thing the government might do, and I haven't seen the witness list, so I don't know if there's an expert on that witness list, but oftentimes, and I've done this in cases that we brought in a domestic violence expert to help explain the psychology of domestic violence victim. You've had some great people on your show this week, Julie, talking about just that issue. I think if the government wanted to, it could offer some expert testimony to explain exactly how someone can seem so willing at one point in time to be involved in a relationship and then at another point not be interested at all in it. These are complicated situations, and sometimes you need to explain to lay people exactly how the psychology of a violent relationship works, and that burden is on the prosecution because, as Dave said, if they can show that she consented to this, then they're going to win that sex trafficking count. But I think that video that they showed from the hotel showing the force is so powerful, and they have other evidence of force and other witnesses who are helping to corroborate what Cassie has had to say.
Yes, William, thank you for that. Exactly, and you're spot on. Are Court TV researchers were watching some of the pretrial hearings and the motions presented, and we believe that there is a witness, exactly as you said, who's going to be a domestic violence expert for the government to explain that dynamic. Excellent points from you both, as always. You two should know each other. We'll make an introduction after the show. You two are such superstars. I could see you being friends in life. Dave Ehrenberg, William Ehlenfeld, stand by, please. We're going to hit a break. When we come back, here's what's coming up for you on opening statements.
At any time, did you have any conversation with any juror in which you tried to influence their decision?
I did not have a conversation with any juror about anything related to this case.
The clerk of court in the Alec Murdaugh murders case now facing charges of her own. Officials say she lied on the stand when there was an inquiry about jury tampering in the Murdaugh case. So how could her words to the former Chief Justice affect Alec Murdaugh's chances of getting another trial? And later in the show, the defense team doubling down on its alternate suspect theory in the Idaho student murders case. Our experts weigh in.
As Sean Diddy Combs faces a federal jury, Court TV's Kelly Craft is live from New York.
It was an emotional day in court.
With every development, the Diddy sex trafficking trial. Live updates on Court TV.
I'm Vinny Politan. Welcome to Closing Arguments.
What's happening here?
It's unreal. Let me show you exactly what happened.
Closing Arguments with Vinny Politan. Tonight at 8/7 Central. Only on Court TV.
Now, there's been a lot of talked about whether Alex should have taken the stand. I can assure you, when we considered what factors and what we should and should not do and considered whether he should take the stand, we never considered the likelihood, as reported to us by the jurors, that the clerk of court would go in to the sanctity of the jury room before he testified and tell the jurors, don't be fooled by his testimony, watch out for his body language. And that is what the sworn testimony that we have filed in court today says.
Now for what's trending in true crime. Becky Hill, remember her, the former clerk of court, as part of Alec Murdaugh's 2023 murder trial, is now out on bond this morning after she's been charged with perjury and obstruction of justice. These charges stem from Hill and that January 2024 inquiry when former Chief Justice Jean Toll from the South Carolina Supreme Court made a ruling that a new trial for Murdaugh was not necessary under the circumstances. Murdaugh, of course, convicted of murdering his wife Maggie and his son Paul, and he requested a new trial based on allegations of jury tampering that went to Hill and her conduct dealing with the jury. Well, now authorities say that Hill lied during that hearing with the justice. Here's more on that.
Did you ever allow anyone from the press to view these sealed exhibits?
No, ma'am.
Did you allow Netflix to ever examine the exhibits for trial?
No, ma'am.
So the clerk of court, her job involves taking care of the jurors, overseeing case exhibits, and helping the judge during the trial. So now the big question is, will what's going on with her have any effect on Alec Murdaugh? Because we know he's still trying to get out of prison. He's still trying to get a new trial. We know his attorneys are certainly hoping that this all helps. Let's bring in an attorney very close to this case, represented some of the victims on it, attorney Eric Bland. He's also the co-host of the Cup of Justice podcast now. Eric, good morning. Oh boy, isn't this the million-dollar question? And we can't wait to hear your analysis on this. Do you think that this could have any effect truly on Murdaugh's bid for that new trial?
Good morning, Julie. From an optics standpoint, it is not good for the state and certainly benefits Alex Murdaugh. But when you break it down, there's 4 charges against Becky Hill. 3 have nothing to do with what she did during the trial. 1 does, and you just played it, regarding evidence that was admitted and sealed, and she purportedly gave it to a third party. But don't forget, when Justice Toll announced her verdict or her ruling where she wouldn't grant a new trial to Alex Murdaugh, she said she found Becky Hill to not be entirely credible and that she wasn't relying on her testimony for her decision. This has always been a legal standard that's going to take place on appeal. She applied the state standard for jury tampering, where you have to show not only the juror interference, but that it had an effect on the jurors. 11 jurors, and I represented 6 of them, said it had zero effect, whatever she may have done. One juror said it did, but Justice Toll did not find her credible. The defense said they should have applied the federal standard, which said all you have to show is juror interference. So on appeal, it's still going to come down to the legal standard. This is noise, and it is powerful that Becky is charged. But Justice Toll clearly said that she didn't find her entirely credible. So you said, well, is Alex going to ever get out of prison if this murder case is reversed, there's a hung jury on a new trial? The answer is no. That's why we work so hard on the financial crimes. He has 67 years of prison time in state and federal prison. He's 56 years old. So irrespective of what happens to the murder case, he's never getting out of prison.
Eric, awesome analysis, all of it. Thank you for that. Let me go back to one of the things you said. Becky Hill not being entirely credible, the judge making that finding. Thank you for reminding us of that, because it's been a while since we've seen that testimony, and you're right, that was something that the justice noted when she was delivering her findings and in her opinion. So we've got a clip of Becky Hill on the stand. Let's look back at some more of what she told the court at that hearing.
Did your comments, or were your comments in any way phrased in favor of one side or against another side, or were they more of a neutral comment about paying attention?
No, it was not for one side or the other.
During the course of the deliberations, once the jury went back there, did you have any contact with the juries or have any substantive discussion with them?
Not at all.
Okay, Eric, that was just a little clip. As you know, there was so much more that came out of that. And I think a lot of people were perturbed that a clerk of court would insert themselves in this process in such a way so that there was even a question about it. There should never have been a question. In all your years of practice in South Carolina, have you ever seen anything like this where a clerk has behaved in such a way? And now I understand these charges now are all allegations. She's cloaked in the presumption of innocence. But we know that there was a book, and that's kind of what I'm talking about, the writing of the book and sort of making herself the center of the attention.
No, I never have, and quite frankly, I don't know anyone that has had that experience. She's an elected official. She's a court officer. She has to be beyond reproach. She clearly took advantage of the moment. She got swept up in it. We all did. I did. But I'm not a court officer. I would have the right to go on TV. But she got caught up in it. She was going to write a book. And I think because she was so involved in every aspect of the trial, from the bailiffs to the jury to being privy to private counsel meetings between the lawyers and the judge, she got the feeling of dominance and importance. You know, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And she got swept up in the moment. I'm disgusted by the allegations regarding her. She has to be fully prosecuted. But at the same time, let's not lose focus of what the issue of this appeal is. It really has nothing to do with Becky Hill. It has more to do with the legal standard that Justice Toll applied.
I appreciate you explaining that to us, Eric. Interference and effect on the jury is what she applied, and you said the Murdaugh defense team is trying to say that it should have been just interference alone that would have been enough to send things back down for a new trial. So I would imagine they're going to be making some moves, as you know, with some filings, and I'm sure we're going to want to have you back on, Eric, for that when they make their next motion. We got to let you go. Eric Bland, thank you so much for everything this morning. Always a pleasure to have you. Take care. And coming up next here on Opening Statements, we're turning our attention to Idaho as Brian Kohberger's defense team is doubling down on an alternate suspect theory. Okay, we'll talk about that. But at the same time, we want to be a voice for victims on this show for those 4 beautiful students who were killed. And the Commonwealth seems to be winding down its case in Massachusetts against defendant Karen Reed. And her supporters could be gearing back up this morning thanks to a new ruling about the buffer zone. That's all coming up.
It was made from the roommate's phone, excuse me, and we're not going to divulge who made that call.
So they came here together. They eventually get into the same apartment together.
Is this your place?
Yeah.
Perfect. You know why we're here?
And I assume noise.
Noise, yeah.
Yeah.
And in the end, they died together.
Welcome back. This morning, as we give a voice to victims, we're keeping an eye on an Idaho courtroom where defendant Brian Kohberger, the man accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students, made a court appearance on Thursday. And his defense team is doubling down on their alternate suspect theory. But the judge wants some evidence to back it up.
Additional information. What I'd like is by the 23rd, if possible, for the defense to do 2 things. One, provide me with whatever actual evidence you have that supports those allegations, rather than just allegations. And 2, provide for me how it is you believe that what you are offering is admissible. Because it seemed to me much of what you had put in there was fairly potentially fairly objectionable in terms of admissibility.
Okay, so the judge wants to see some proof, and then, of course, the state's going to have an opportunity to review what the defense puts forward and then file their response. So the judge set a couple of court dates coming up for that. And so many motions have been under seal, so who knows if we'll get to see this ahead of trial. But, of course, we're watching the docket every day to see what else is filed. Let's talk about this idea in general, though, the idea that someone else did these homicides, or multiple people did these homicides, maybe not just one person. Let's talk about that defense theory. Let's bring back in our legal experts, Dave Ehrenberg and William Ehlenfeld. Dave, let me begin with you, please. Your thoughts on what the defense is seeking to do here?
Well, when you got nothing, you got to start creating something. I mean, they waited months before they could figure out an alibi for Brian Kohberger, and it was that he was driving alone in the middle of the night looking at stars in his hardtop Hyundai. None of this makes any sense. Might as well just let my Beagle do the closing argument, because they're just throwing anything at the wall. That makes about as much sense as an alternate suspect, right? How do they get Brian Kohberger's DNA on the knife sheath? How do you explain that? Some other guy set him up, planted it there, and then drove off in a Hyundai Elantra, which just happens to be Kohberger's same car. And of course, Kohberger can't explain where he was that night. No witnesses, no alibi for him. It doesn't make any sense. This guy did it. He's going down for it. I respect the defense lawyers for trying what they can, but the judge, you can see, is as skeptical as I am.
Yes. Oh, Dave, tell us how you really feel. Love everything you just said there, especially the part about your adorable dog doing the arguments. You know, I think we would all be here for that. Let me piggyback off of something you shared with, you know, when it's a defense team trying to deal with the bad facts. They've got a lot of bad facts, these attorneys who are representing Mr. Kohberger. William, tell me, we've seen this team launching a rigorous defense for him. It seems like they're leaving no stone unturned. The motions they've filed, I commend these prosecutors for keeping up. I think it's got to be really hard with what they're doing. Could this have anything to do with the state seeking the death penalty? Would there be any repercussions for his defense team if they didn't explore the idea of another suspect, and then if he was convicted and sentenced to death then?
Yeah, that's a great point. And by the way, my Bernie Doodle status might also want to have a crack at this trial in addition to Dave's people. But
yes.
named after Pittsburgh Steelers Jerome Bettis.
Oh, that's so awesome.
When there's a death penalty case, these things, if there were to be a conviction and he were ordered to be sentenced to death, then that's going to be on appeal for quite some time. And at that point in time, new attorneys will be appointed, and it would be the job of those new attorneys to try to pick apart what his current attorneys did wrong. And so they want to make sure they cover all their bases and that they explore every potential theory. And I know at a pretrial hearing in this case early on, Julie, one of Mr. Kohberger's defense attorneys said that they might have an expert who's going to say this crime could not have been committed by just one person, that you needed to have two perpetrators and two weapons. And what the judge is saying now, and I really like this, the judge is saying, look, give this to me in advance of trial. I don't want there to be games played. A quote from the judge is, I don't like surprises. And so the judge is going to allow the defense to submit this under seal. The judge is going to review it and see if it is really admissible evidence or if it's objectionable. And even in that instance, if the defense has tried to get it in and the judge doesn't allow it, that would create an appeal issue for them, and they would be covering themselves. If in fact he's convicted and sentenced to death, they will have at least be able to say that they attempted to offer this alternate offender theory.
William, your insight's so helpful. Thank you for that. And didn't I tell you, you and Dave need to be friends? You're both animal lovers. Love it. We could talk about animals all day long here. I know I could. I love when the animals are watching the show and people send their pictures. And I bet we'll get some this morning after this discussion with you two. All right, so let's turn our attention to something else that came up. This was something that had many talking. It came up in the hearing on Thursday. In reference to the home on King Road that's now been demolished. Apparently there was a motto, kind of a mock-up of the home that was made. It's going to be used as an exhibit, but it was referred to as a dollhouse. Take a look.
To the extent that the model was characterized as a dollhouse, I think that was an inappropriate characterization. It is an inappropriate characterization. If I'm responsible for it, I assume responsibility, but that's simply not an appropriate way for it to be described, given what occurred there and the victims.
I think a better term is simply a model.
Yeah, the judge is right. Model, not a dollhouse. Let's talk about those victims. Let's put our focus on them and what this is going to be like for all of them. Something, as you both know, it just broke my heart when I heard about those two housemates who are surviving roommates of the four beautiful students who were killed, and how the judge said they're going to have a seat, and yes, they're going to be witnesses, but he thinks it's going to be highly unlikely they're ever going to show up in court and be around everybody because of the way that they were treated after this. I know you both are such tremendous advocates for victims and have done so much for the people that you've represented, respectively, in Florida and in West Virginia. And so let's turn our conversation to that. Dave, to you first, please. Your thoughts on this?
Well, the one victim who survived and saw the bushy-eyebrowed killer has been portrayed as part of the conspiracy to kill her own roommates, and it's outrageous. And I've seen this online where you could have a mountain of evidence, as we do in this case against Brian Kohberger, and still you have his defenders, and I guess they'll believe anything. I have one rule when it comes to people like that online when they comment on my videos. They say, you can say what you want, but my one rule is when he's found guilty, I want you to come back and admit that you were wrong. But I'm sure we'll never hear from you again at that point.
Right. You're right, Dave. The online bullies, they pick and choose when they want to attack and who they want to attack, and no consequences, no penalties of perjury for them, no consequences out in a cyber world. But, you and William will keep doing what you're doing, advocating for victims, as you always have. William, what did you think when you heard that the judge said, of course they will not allow our cameras to film those surviving housemates, will just have the audio of what they're saying on the stand to broadcast, and that they probably won't want to sit in the courtroom because of the way that people have treated them?
It made me really sad to hear that. I mean, the trauma that they've been through, they should have the opportunity to, and he's giving them that opportunity to go in the courtroom and to see this process through to the end. That can be therapeutic in many ways, but the fact that they're not potentially going to go in there because of how they've been treated by these keyboard warriors is really sad. It's really disgusting. There is a mountain of evidence in this case. I strongly believe he's going to be convicted, and I hope that those folks will reconsider the positions they've taken, the awful things that they've said online after that. Probably not. I guess I'm skeptical when it comes to folks like that, but it's sad, the world we live in, that kind of stuff can go on. And I just hope that the survivors, that these folks he's talking about, are able to move on someday and heal as much as possible from what they've experienced.
Well said, William. Thank you. Yeah, we always say, focus on the good people, the encouragers, the healers, the helpers, like Mr. Rogers. William, I know you love that Mr. Rogers reference. He would always say, when I was a little boy, my mother would say, look for the helpers when you see scary things out there. Look for all those good people, and so many wonderful victims advocacy organizations are there to support them. Well, we'll continue following it and leave the discussion here for now. Dave and William are coming with us. I want you to do the same at home, please. And as we go to break, before we go to our next segment, come to your television set. Look at these beautiful children gone far too soon. We want to remember the victims in the Idaho student murders case. Too much focus is on Brian Kohberger. So let's remember Kaylee Gonsalves, Madison Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. These young, bright, sweet people were taken in the most awful way. Our hearts go out to their families and their friends and everyone who loves and misses them so much. We'll be right back.
Is Karen Reed a killer girlfriend?
She's guilty.
Or the scapegoat in an elaborate cover-up?
Karen Reed was framed!
Karen Reed is accused of murdering her police officer boyfriend.
Defendant stated repeatedly, I hit him.
She may end up taking the stand.
Her first trial ended with a hung jury.
They haven't proven anything.
Will a jury finally agree on a verdict?
We know who did it.
The Karen Reed murder retrial. Live coverage today on Court TV.
Welcome back. Now for what's tipping the scales of justice. A little victory for Karen Reed's supporters as the Honorable Beverly Cannoni lifted the 200-foot buffer zone outside of her courtroom Thursday night.
Karen Reed! Free Karen Reed! Free Karen Reed!
Okay, and take a look at these scenes from last year and this year. Support for Karen Reed looks a whole lot quieter this year, as you see 2024 compared to 2025. Now, days before the retrial began, Judge Cannoni ordered the buffer zone to keep protesters from potentially interrupting the business inside of the courtroom. We can't have it interfering with the jury. Well, 4 supporters sued Cannoni and other courtroom officials, saying that the buffer zone violated their freedom of speech rights. The case went up to the First Circuit Court of Appeals in Massachusetts, leaning in favor of the supporters. They can peacefully now protest closer to the courthouse, just off of the courthouse property. All right, so let's talk about this, the concerns that the judge will have going forward to make sure that the zone doesn't disrupt what's been going on the last few weeks and what's set to happen the next few weeks. And also, what's left for the Commonwealth to prove? Let's bring back in our legal eagles, William Ehlenfeld and Dave Ehrenberg. Okay, so let's start with the buffer zone and the obligations that the judge has to make sure that the members of the jury are not affected by anybody who is feeling invigorated this morning by being able to get a little bit closer. William, your thoughts on what the judge must do?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you want to balance the right of a fair trial for Karen Reed with the First Amendment, and I think that can be done. I think you can make sure that you give folks the opportunity to speak their mind, to have their voices heard, as long as they do it in a way that's not interfering with the jury, not bothering the jurors as they go in and out of the courthouse. You know, a judge is always most protective of the jury. You don't want them to be influenced by outsiders. You don't want them to feel pressured or intimidated. And so I think that balance can be reached. I think the federal court weighed in and the First Circuit Appellate Court agreed that you can have a fair trial and allow these folks to let their voices be heard. This is a cultural phenomenon. This is kind of just taken off in that town. And ever since those text messages came out by Trooper Proctor, it sort of inflamed people, and it really led us to where we are today. But I think we can have both a fair trial and allow these individuals to let their voices be heard.
Yes, most definitely. And any chance I get on this program to show viewers what you were just explaining to us, William, that the Sam Shepard case, as you and Dave know, was what started it all and still is the controlling law that the court has those obligations to make sure that things don't become a circus with the media or with protesters. The late, great F. Lee Bailey representing the Dr. Sam Shepard in that case that went all the way to the United States Supreme Court, originating in Ohio. And ultimately, the judge or the court, when Sam Shepard got a new trial, his conviction was vacated. And so, he lived kind of a bad life. I guess we don't have that video. I thought we had it. If we get it, we'll put it up. But at any rate, let's talk about the other big question. Apart from the protesting going on, of course, what matters is what's happening inside the courtroom. Dave Ehrenberg, in terms of the proof and what the Commonwealth of Massachusetts still needs to do in its case in chief, what would you say they have left, please?
I think they've done a great job. They've done it with passion, much better prosecution presentation this time. I think a lot of it is in the form rather than the substance. The substance was always strong. I do think that in the closing arguments, you may want to also point out the ridiculousness of the defense theory. Now, you don't want to shift the burden. The defense doesn't have any burden of proof. Only the prosecution does. But the defense has bitten off, I think, more than it could chew by going ahead and trying to come up with a cockamamie theory about how the victim here went into a house, no evidence of that, and was beaten up and killed by his friends, people from all different law enforcement agencies, and all these soccer moms who were there, none of whom had an elevated heart rate, as we know from their heart rate watches. And then these cops and soccer moms decided, instead of hiding the body or claiming self-defense, they threw the body onto the front lawn to somehow frame Karen Reed for it. It just doesn't make any sense at all. And I think you can exploit that. Normally, defense lawyers just have to poke holes in the prosecution's case. Here, they've gone ahead of what they really needed to do. And I think the prosecution can make them eat it.
Dave, I love it. I love it. Tell us more. I wish we had time for more. Thank you. I want to get another question about the special prosecutor, Hank Brennan, somebody who knows his way around the courtroom. He's practiced in state court, federal court, been a long time defense attorney after he was a prosecutor. And William, it's kind of neat. You both have a connection in a way to Whitey Bulger, with Hank Brennan representing him. And then after he went to prison for a long, long time, you prosecuted the people that killed Whitey Bulger. So how about that little known fact? Hank Brennan and the way he's trying this case, William, your thoughts on that?
I think he's doing an outstanding job. He has kept it tight. It's been fast-paced. It's been better than the last time. Jurors don't want to be sitting around thinking, rolling their eyes, wondering why is this taking so long, getting frustrated. And this is a big case, a lot of witness, a lot of evidence, complicated, but he has kept it really tight, so I give him credit for that. I think going forward, he wants to continue to keep up this pace. He wants to continue to use Karen Reed's words against her. They've done a good job of interjecting clips of things that she has said through all these different interviews she's done. She probably won't take the witness stand, so they've been able to get her words into the trial and point out some inconsistencies in what she has said. And then the other thing that I think he's trying to do is to stay as far away from former Trooper Michael Proctor as possible. Man, oh man, those text messages were just awful. That's the last thing a prosecutor wants to see, is those things come across his desk and they have to somehow deal with them. So he's going to try to stay away from Proctor. He needs to as much as he possibly can.
Yeah, smart move. Such smart analysis. William Ehrenfeld, Dave Ehrenberg, thank you both so much for your time, your expertise. I'm going to connect you two. We'll all share some dog pictures. And I know you both need to get on with your day.
Bella.
What's that, Dave?
Hi, baby Bella.
Oh, hi to Bella, my dog. That's right. See you guys soon.